This is episode number 5 of Al Tamimi's criminal litigation series. I'm joined today with my colleague Adnan Erqsousi. He's a senior associate from the litigation department. Today we're discussing cryptocurrency. We discussed this before in a podcast focusing on cryptocurrency in Kuwait and UAE, but in today's episode we're focusing on UAE more. We have 2 judgments we're discussing. One we'll discuss briefly, one into more details. One judgment is issued from Ras Al Khaimah Civil Court. The other judgment is issued from Ras Al Khaimah Criminal Court. Before going into this, I think we should define cryptocurrency, just for everyone to understand. Cryptocurrency is a digital currency that you use in a digital world. So think of it as money or a form of payment that was created to be exchanged in a digital world. So you need to have an electronic wallet, and you do transactions and dealings through that cryptocurrency. There was a specific criminal case involving Bitcoin mining investment agreement, and a judgment was issued by Ras Al Khaimah Criminal Court. Adnan will take us through that case.
Yes, thank you, Omar. Now, this case was related to an investment agreement for the purchase and operation of a Bitcoin mining unit. The agreement was signed between multiple investors from one side and let's say a fund management company from the other. Under the agreement, the investors had given the company discretion to determine when the Bitcoins payout will be distributed amongst them. In 2018, one of the investors filed a complaint before the Iraq prosecution against the manager of the company, as he was claiming that the manager defrauded him for not transferring his Bitcoins payout during the peak period when the Bitcoin reached around $19,000.
So
in December 2017.
The complaint wasn't about the legality of Bitcoin.
It was. He was
receiving.
Not exactly. He was actually requesting the court or demonstrating that there was a valid agreement, and he was relying on that agreement. So there was no question about the validity of the agreement. So the Iraq prosecution investigated the matter, and then he pressed charges against the manager of the company for fraud, and of course transferred or referred the matter to trial before the Iraq Criminal Court. In October 2018, the Iraq Criminal Court dismissed the charges as it found that this is a contractual dispute and falls under the jurisdiction of the civil court. Of course, neither the prosecution or the investor was satisfied, and then he challenged the judgment to the Court of Appeal, where they requested the court to revise the charges to breach of trust, not fraud.
Yes.
And then when the Court of Appeal considered the ground of challenges, it decided to appoint an independent IT expert to determine if whether the investor had received his full investment return and any other profit earnings. And after, of course, the expert produced his report and submitted to the Court of Appeal, the Court of Appeal found or again dismissed the charges of fraud against the manager for, let's say, 4 main points. The first point, that the Court of Appeal found that, or the Court of Appeal took into consideration the contractual relation between the parties and found that the investors had given, as we have said earlier, the company which is being managed by the accused manager, the discretion to decide and determine how the payouts will be distributed, either by bitcoins or in any other form of currency, even if it was US dollars. The second point, that the court found that this type of investments requires a very unique expertise, and as such that the manager of the company a very unique expertise, let's say, to maintain the security and the profitability of the investment, and therefore the manager of the company should have power to manage the investment and to
decide on the distribution,
exchange and distribution of the payouts. The other point that the court found, of course, after as per the conclusion of the expert in his report, that this investor had received his 100% investment capital in full, in addition to a considerable profit earnings, which means that the manager of the company had exerted a due care in running and operating the mining unit. So in sum, let's say the court found that that the manager of the company was under no obligation to distribute the Bitcoin payouts on a scheduled basis, and that the investor had actually agreed to give the manager of the company the discretion to determine when and how the Bitcoin's payout will be distributed.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. In summary, that case in Ras Al Khaimah, the judgment, the conclusion, or the takeaway that we get from this judgment is that the topic of legality of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency was not touched upon or tackled, whether by the prosecution or the court. They handled that case purely as an investment agreement and breach of trust or fraud, and whether the manager should had an obligation to give the payout.
Yes, one of the main elements the court took into consideration is the contractual relation and the terms of the agreement. Okay, and it looked into the nature of the agreement, and it went beyond the legality, and so it deemed that contract and agreement is valid, and it's admissible to any judicial body by any of the parties to claim for his rights.
One argument one can think of is that we would expect an outcome that the court would step in and say this is illegal dealing or not licensed or something that's not recognized, to talk about whether this contract or agreement is null and void or not. But this didn't happen, although it wasn't direct stating yes or no, but you can get an implied meaning that it was fine. I understand there is another civil case also in Ras Al Khaimah, where the Ras Al Khaimah civil court issued a judgment, but with a different view.
Yes, exactly. Now, contrary to the case which I have just demonstrated, that case had different merits and particulars. The judgment was issued in 2020 with respect to a claim filed by, let's say, also an investor who entered with another in an agreement to earn also profits from a crypto called OneCoin. Okay, and after the matter has been referred to an expert, the expert found that this crypto was involved in a big or global fraud scheme, and it was run by a company registered, I think, in Dubai. And therefore, the court, in conclusion, found that the subject matter of the contract was, let's say, was of illicit and illegal background, and therefore the contract shall be deemed null and void. And therefore, as a result, the court did not accept the claim from the investor because he cannot rely on a void contract.
So the judgment issued from Ras Al Khaimah Civil Court, although they deemed the underlying agreement as null and void, it wasn't because anything related to whether dealing with cryptocurrency is legal or not.
Exactly.
It's more of whether it's cryptocurrency or not, that the people behind that company were defrauding people.
Exactly.
So, okay, understood.
Because it was ultimately based on a fraud scheme, and not because it was related to a cryptocurrency.
To conclude, I think we can get a meaning that dealing with cryptocurrency from those two cases did not cause any issue, but I wouldn't say that this means that there is no risk whatsoever. Cryptocurrency is relatively new in the jurisdiction across GCC. There is significant steps towards regulating cryptocurrency, and we've seen this recently with some legislations and updates. We should also point that the UAE has an overlap that complement each other of different legal jurisdictions. This includes free zones, the mainland, so you might have different regulatory requirements in each of those jurisdictions, but they would all fall under the umbrella of the federal laws, not to breach or violate any term of those regulations or laws. Risks from anti-money laundering, risks derived from the cyber crimes or the penal code. There's also the regulatory and banking perspective. All of this needs to be considered. So to conclude, any last thoughts, Adnan?
Yes, now the legal landscape for cryptocurrencies is rapidly changing in the UAE, and therefore the UAE cabinet has issued resolution number 111 of 2022, whereby any entity dealing with virtual assets should be licensed by the Security and Commodities Authority. This is, of course, for the protection and the guarantee of the parties of any, let's say, agreement or dealing related to virtual assets. So everyone has to be vigilant and cautious for any such kind of dealings, because as we have mentioned, there's a lot of ongoing fraud schemes, and at the end of the day, you don't want to pay too much money and struggle in recovering it, especially that these kind of investments are always run by, let's say, offshore companies or people who are
you cannot trace.
Exactly, untraceable. Exactly. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Adnan. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Stay tuned for more episodes of the Criminal Litigation series.